Hi everyone, this is part 3 of Standing Out from the Crowd in a Job Search, and I'm Dr. Lepore, and we're just going to continue our conversation about job searching. So, if you take a look at this chart, okay, what you'll see in here is that we have big skills. Okay, so for instance, problem solving is a big skill. But what you'll notice that coming off of each of these skills is this idea that it can be specialized. So when we're looking at a job ad, you might notice that they're asking you for problem solving. And that's great. You can say, well, I have problem solving skills, but how do you actually show? How do you actually show an employer that you've got these? Well, in this case, if you look at problem solving, you'll notice that it could be in finance or marketing or HR. And for each of these, there are specific words or applications of the skill that you might want to include on your resume or in your cover letter. So for instance, problem solving in marketing could end up looking like cooperation in a team environment or strategic planning or focusing on customer retention. So liberal arts graduates tend to have really good critical thinking, problem solving, and communication skills. It's part of the program. So if you look at the screen right now, it shows us the communication skills and it's giving us some suggestions. So again, if we look at marketing, communication and marketing could include press releases and brand management and storytelling, which might actually be part of the job of a market research analyst. Okay? So as you're going through your job search and your planning, you want to pay attention to these other terms that might map back to some of the bigger skills that you've developed or are developing in your degree. Once you have this in mind, you're going to want to customize your resume. And one of the things you want to do is make sure you're using the vocabulary of the employer and of your field. If they're saying strategic planning skills, well, you want to make sure you know what that is and you want to use them. Okay? Now, some of the things you want to keep in mind in addition to vocabulary is that if you are giving information about accomplishments you've had, you want to make sure that the first bullet is always going to be the one that matches the best or the most to the job description. Remember, as human beings, we tend to pay attention to the first thing we see. Okay? You want to make sure that if there's bullets in there in your resume that really don't make any sense, given the job posting, you might want to remove them, even if they're accurate and they are what you did. You may still sit there and go, this doesn't apply in any way, shape, or form, so maybe I need to take off my lifeguarding experience, or you might want to shift it somewhere else in the resume if you feel that it's still important. Okay? When we're doing this, we're going to want to rewrite our par bullets to make sure that we're demonstrating the skills we need for the specific job in front of us. So some of the things that you want to keep in mind, your audience for your resume, okay? You're going to potentially have your resume put in front of the employee or employees from the position and bosses from the position. So people who are not directly hiring you, but do have a say in your being hired. You might have your resume put in front of a hiring manager. So that is the person who's going to supervise the job. Sometimes you'll be put in front of a recruiter. A recruiter could be internal. It could be somebody from HR that serves that function, or it could be somebody external from an outside company who's going to kind of run interference or be the intermediary between you and the hiring manager, employees, and bosses that have a say in the job. Now you'll notice I went backwards in this, and the reason is because I wanted to explain a little bit about the applicant tracking system. So ATSs are systems that track the applicants for a job. It is usually an automated function and a search where the computer, you supply your resume and cover letter, and the technology itself is going to run an analysis to see how well you match. It is looking for specific keywords, and there's lots of things on LinkedIn if you wanted to read about how to work with an ATS or make resumes that are good for an ATS. But remember, this is a small part of where people get their jobs. You want to maximize your ability to get through an applicant tracking system by using the right vocabulary, making sure you are reflecting and mirroring the job posting as much as you can. But you can spend tremendous amounts of hours trying to learn how to work with the ATS. But be aware, it is one of the things that you might see. Okay? What's really important, though, no matter which of the things, which of the people, right, or what would we call functions are going to look at your resume, what you really want to make sure you're doing is focusing on the needs of the employer. If you focus on their needs, they're going to realize you want the job, because you have the abilities, you're showing them the abilities. Your past experiences show that you can do this kind of work and do it well, but also you're showing them that you care. You're showing them that you took the time to make sure that they saw you as an ideal candidate. So your first step is always going to be to read that job description really, really closely. Okay? That close reading skills that you've learned in your classes come in handy when it comes time to read a job posting. When you're reading your job posting, your first goal is to get your big picture. You want to understand who's the employer, what are they trying to do, who do they actually try to do this for, and who are they looking for? Who do they want to hire? Then you're going to want to come back and analyze the details. You're going to want to look at it, in small things like small bullet points and try to parse out the details. What are they telling you by, without even telling you, directly? If you notice that the language is very casual, that tells you something about their culture. If it's extremely formal, that also tells you something about the culture. Okay? So you're going to analyze what they say and how they say it. And then you're going to go back to your big picture and see if you're still accurate. You're going to do this before you ever apply. Okay? You want to make sure that before you start your application, which means your resume and your cover letter and anything else they're asking, you know what the company does, you know who they serve, you know who they care about, what are their mission, what are their values. Usually, it's worth taking some time and looking at their website. It's going to give you a lot of information about who they are and what they do. Okay? You want to make sure that you look at the position description carefully. Look at the title. They're not always going to give you enough information, but it's always a good idea to take that title and go searching elsewhere on the internet. Pay attention to the main duties of the jobs, the tasks that they're telling you, and the tasks that they say are most important. Remember, they're going to list them in order of importance too. Okay? So usually they're going to tell you the things first that they want you to pay attention to, and the things that come lower may not be as important to them. You'll even see that some of them, when they're talking about skills, will start off with required skills and experience, and then it goes to desired skills and experience. Make sure you know all of those requirements. Make sure that you're dealing with any credentials or education, technical skills, baseline skills, experiences. Make sure you're paying attention to that preferred and minimum. Again, just because you may not meet the minimum doesn't mean you can't apply. It just means that you may not make it through the screening process. But you never know. Okay? If it's something you feel passionate about and you want to put the time in for the application process, if you have a 70% match, it might be worth it to you. Okay? It also might be worth it to go out and talk to somebody through networking. Make sure you pay attention to the postings and look for words and phrases that talk about values and mission statement, and their phrases and words that they use for skills. Okay? So as we work through this hiring process, it's a pretty complex process. You're going to encounter places where it's quick scanning, all the way down to deep diving, where you're going to have to do a lot of extensive background to know what you're doing. Remember that hiring is subjective. It can be tough to get through the ATS. However, more often than not, people will be involved. Okay? Even if they use an ATS, after that, people are going to get involved. And so you want to constantly keep that in mind, that you are selling yourself, telling your story to people. Okay? So telling your story with enthusiasm, care, and evidence is important, all three of them. All right, so These videos were here to help you get started on your job search. Right? So it's up to you. Why don't you go ahead out, take a look at some job postings, and get started.